Hello, America. Hello, America. Good morning, America. So let's listen to this clip, okay?
We have that ready.
What?
Turn the keys over to the Palestinian people. And what happened? Hamas took over Gaza. So instead of having a thriving economy with the kind of opportunities that the children of the Palestinians deserve, we have a terrorist haven that is getting more and more rockets shipped in from Iran and elsewhere.
Okay, so that's Hillary Clinton. People want to sit there and paint the Democrats as an opposition party. She is vehemently defending Israel. 2016 debate, Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton. She's vehemently defending Israel. And this is 2016, so this is going to be right after the 2014 Gaza massacre, where 551 kids were killed, 2,310 Palestinians were killed, 73 Israelis were killed. And there's been 4 Gaza massacres in the last 11 years.
Nick, what are your thoughts on how that played out?
Would suggest that Israel invites or welcomes missiles flying into their country. That is not the issue. And you evaded the answer. You evaded the question. The question is, not does Israel have a right to respond, not does Israel have a right to go after terrorists and destroy terrorism. That's not the debate. Was their response disproportionate? I believe that it was. You have not answered that.
Remember, Israel left Gaza. They took out all the Israelis. They turned the keys over to the Palestinian people. And what happened? Hamas took over Gaza. So instead of having a thriving economy with the kind of opportunities that the children of the Palestinians deserve, we have a terrorist haven that is getting more and more rockets shipped in from Iran and elsewhere. Nick, what are your thoughts?
So, Bernie Sanders is a proud Jew. He's a proud Jew and he wants to defend Jewish Israel. So that puts him in a very unique, particular, and important position. He's got a unique perspective, and perhaps only Bernie Sanders can solve this thing. At this point, he's the only one that can, okay? So the biggest obstacle to the whole Palestinian-Israeli conflict is racism. Do you think the kids of Palestine are human beings? And so far, apartheid, separate but equal, segregation, this maintains between Israel and Palestine. So Israel has Palestine surrounded. But let's look at the Democrats throughout the years, okay? So the Democrats, not throughout the years, but let's just look at the presidential hopefuls. Okay? So, Democrats love Palestine. They hate Israel. That's what Donald Trump is going to say. They hate Israel, and they hate the Jewish people. Donald is the one that says some of the Nazis are good people. He's the one that defends the Nazis who was exterminating the shit out of Jewish people. Yeah, it's the Democrats who hates Israel. No, it's the Democrats who want to save Israel. It's the Democrats who defend Israel to the point, almost like a Republican. So it depends on which Democrat. Are you talking about Bernie Sanders? Because he's, an independent. He is Democratic-ish. But Hillary Clinton defends Israel to a fault. Kirsten Gillibrand defends Israel too much. Elizabeth Warren, way too much. They pushed for millions of dollars to go to Israel when that 2014 Gaza massacre was happening. So when they were killing 2,310 Palestinians, 551 kids, because remember, Hillary said this is for the Palestinian kids. And real quick about Hamas, Hamas was elected. Kirsten Gillibrand, she's going to claim that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. So, Iraq, Palestine, I thought that's why we were there. We're bringing them democracy, elections, freedom. Isn't that why we're in Iraq? And, what, the Palestinians, we had got an election going for Palestine, and they elected Hamas. So that means Iraq and Palestine are other democracies in the Middle East. It's not just Israel anymore. So Kirsten Gillibrand Elizabeth Warren, they love Israel just like Hillary Clinton does. Elizabeth Warren pushed for $225 million extra for Israel during the 2014 Gaza massacre, which saw 551 Palestinian kids murdered, slain, slaughtered, killed like they were pigs, squashed like cockroaches. So Kirsten Gillibrand, she pushed for $662 million to be given to Israel during their 2014 massacre of Gaza, their massacre of Bethlehem. And again, there's been 4 major massacres, one in 2008, 2012, 2014, and just a few months ago, 2019 Gaza massacres, or Gaza massacre, and there could be more. Those are just the 4 that I was able to remember just from memory, but 2008 Christmas bombing of Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus Christ, 288 kids are going to get killed. And then 1,400 Palestinians, and then 13 Israelis are going to die. 2 Israelis are going to die, and 160 Palestinians are going to die in 2012. 2014, 73 Israelis, and 2,310 Palestinians were killed, including 551 kids, and then 219, there were 2 Israelis killed, and 62 Palestinians. 62 versus 2, 2,310 versus 73, 160 versus 2. So 1,400 versus 13, 1,400 v. 13, 2,310 versus 73. That's a turkey shoot. That's a fucking massacre. We call the Boston massacre a massacre, and only 5 people died. I mean, every life is valuable, but that's like the least massacre of massacres. So Cory Booker says if he forgets Israel, if he forgets OVO Israel, may he cut off his right hand. Is Cory Booker going to cut off his left hand if he forgets Palestine? So you got Kirsten Gillibrand pushing all this money on to Israel, trying to push America and the U.S. Congress $662 million. Really, we got $600 million we could just throw to Israel whenever the hell they want to, kill 551 kids. And then Elizabeth Warren was pushing for $225 million because Israel is killing a bunch of Palestinian children. So both Kirsten Gillibrand and Elizabeth Warren, by the power of the purse, by the power of, deciding budget discretionary, they were encouraging the murder of Palestinian children. We, through the Security Council veto, just happened, they were destroying buildings through the Security Council veto, and through the $4 billion we give in subsidies. That's how we defend and protect Israel. We also give them weapons and nukes. That they're one of the few, there's 9 nuclear countries, and Israel's one of the few. So they're part of the nuclear club. Out of 200 countries, only 9 of them have nuclear weapons. And so Kirsten Gillibrand, Elizabeth Warren, they wanted to give them millions. 225, Elizabeth Warren, $662 million for Kirsten Gillibrand. AIPAC's favorite is Amy Klobuchar. She's just very uncharismatic and very boring, and no, why is she there? Beto O'Rourke, she said that Israel and the United States, their relationship is one of the most important on the planet. One of the most important relationships on the planet is Israel and the United States. He was basically 100% for Israel, but there was one time when Beto O'Rourke didn't stand in solidarity with Israel during his 8-year stint in Congress, and that was during the 2014 Gaza massacre. Apparently Israel wanted an Iron Dome. They wanted some money for an Iron Dome. Kirsten Gillibrand wanted to give them $600 million. Elizabeth Warren wanted to give them $200 million. I don't know how much. Did they get some money in 2014? So yeah, so he wants to say, oh, they hate Israel. He's so stupid. They hate Israel, so therefore the Democrats want to save Israel. Bernie Sanders wants to save Israel because if they continue to take settlements out of Palestine, they're forcing both nations to join one country, which would mean that it won't be Jewish Israel anymore, it'll be secular Israel. And it'll be just like America. You'll have a respect of, freedom of religion and no establishment of religion, so it'll be a secular, democratic, binational, single state. So the more settlements that Israel takes, the less likely a 2-state solution will actually come into fruition. which has been the U.S. policy for decades. So the two-state solution has not been working because Israel just can't stop themselves. And nobody stops them when they, take more than their fair share. They're just stealing people's land, other people's land. They destroyed buildings, the buildings in East Jerusalem. So in Palestine, they go in there and they say it was too close to the border. And what can people do? They just sat back and essentially watched. And, the Palestinians are mostly powerless. And then the crazy thing is when they voted for Hamas, that should show you something that the people, now have, Hamas has the confidence of the people. So why would they, the people want to say Palestinians are a bunch of terrorists because, they're Muslims, so that goes along with the racism. But Israel's the terrorist when they're killing 551 kids. Israel's the terrorist when they kill 2,300 Palestinians. And then who supports terrorism? Of course, United States, right? Just Kirsten Gillibrand, Elizabeth Warren. Now, if you look at Mike Gravel, so this is, a radical Democrat, and only Bernie Sanders and Mike Gravel actually says anything of value when it comes. We needed a debate between Mike Gravel and Bernie Sanders on Israel and Palestine. But Mike Gravel, he says we need to protect the BDS movement. You had, I think, Amy Klobuchar voted for that anti-BDS bill, and Tulsi Gabbard voted for the anti-BDS bill, which was very shocking to me. So you got this, Mike Gravel, he's going to protect the BDS movement. I think Kirsten Gillibrand and Cory Booker thought about signing it and then decided not to. So Mike Gravel wants to end the apartheid, end the $4 billion we give to Israel for free, restrict the power of AIPAC, make them sign up for FARA, and establish a mature, nonpartisan relationship with Israel. He's in favor of a one-state solution where human rights are upheld by the United Nations Declarations of Human Rights, one binational democratic secular state with Jerusalem as the capital. One-state solution, a democratic republic. Whereas Bernie Sanders, he says he wants to end the blockade of Gaza, resolve the border dispute of the West Bank, end policy of targeted killings. This is to Israel. Prevent future Israeli settlements, stop destroying Palestinian homes, businesses, and infrastructure. Bernie Sanders believes in the two-state solution with the 1967 borders. And he says everybody agrees on this. International law, international consensus, a lot of Security Council resolutions that the United States has signed on to. Two-state solution, 1967 borders. It's already been decided, but for some reason, Israel now has Palestine surrounded. Hillary said that they left Palestine, which if they stop the occupation, that's a good start, but they have them surrounded, military checkpoints. They can't come, they can't go, nobody can come in and give them food. They count every single calorie that goes into Palestine because they just want to give them enough sustenance just to be able to live. Half of them are impoverished, and again, they have them surrounded. There's a wall, security checkpoints, military all over the place, and Israel has no problem going into Palestine, destroying their buildings, and bombing, the living shit out of them. If there is somebody that, launches airstrikes, then Israel just indiscriminately just starts killing the shit out of Palestine. Indiscriminate bombings. They say it's military targets. They fly a bunch of leaflets, and they warn the people, hey, we're going to bomb the shit out of this building. And a lot of people say they're hiding behind the babies. Oh, okay, so if you have a baby and you put it in front, yeah, that's cowardly. But it's, that's a horrible thing. But if the person still shoots and murders the baby, well, that's, what a piece of shit. If a person's holding the baby, they're not holding the gun. They're not attacking. They're not aggressive. So if they're holding the baby, yeah, that's a very cowardly act. But murdering a baby, that's more cowardly and sick and disgusting and psychopathic. So, I've heard people laugh at the Palestinians. I'm sure the Nazis were laughing at the Jews when they would, hide and cower and not act like, strong men when they were confronted with repression, governmental repression. Cory Booker says, cut off his right hand if he forgets Israel. Should we cut off his left hand if he forgets Palestine? Joe Biden, after the, during or after, right after the 2014 Gaza massacre, they say, hey, Joe Biden, what do you got something to say to Netanyahu? And he goes, hey, yes, I got a message to Bibi. I love him. I love him. Oh, okay, wow, that's pretty, the Democrats, Bernie Sanders wants to save Israel. He wants to save Jewish Israel by enforcing the two-state solution. So that's where the Democrats stand. So to say that they hate Israel, that they hate the Jews, Bernie Sanders is a Jew, and does Donald Trump not call him Crazy Bernie? So Bernie Sanders is a proud Jew who wants to defend Jewish Israel. He loves Israel. The thing about it is he wants Israel to act, according to international law and have the 1967 borders with Jerusalem as the capital of both nations, and they keep, not doing that. And by them, the whole Muslim world knows what's going on in Palestine and Israel. They know it's unfair. They know it's apartheid. They know it's a concentration camp. And they know that the U.S. always protects and defends Israel. So that's how the Palestinians have survived. You heard Hillary saying that Iran and I don't know what other country, but they're giving them weapons. That's because Palestinians are enduring a crazy amount of oppression. They're on the verge of extinction. If it was up to Israel, they would have already wiped out the Palestinians. You have a concentration camp. So that's just a slow death, a slave camp. And they're not even, using their labor. They don't have jobs. So they have a slave camp, or just a concentration camp of people that just have to, eat whatever Israel gives them and, wander around from here to there. I don't know, you have to pretend, I guess, the occupation isn't happening. So, Beto O'Rourke, he did stand up against Israel in 2014 when it comes to that Iron Dome, when Kirsten Gillibrand and Elizabeth Warren was pushing for millions of dollars to go kill more Palestinian children. Amy Klobuchar, I just kind of written her off, but I just know she's AIPAC's favorite. So that tells me really all I need to know. Then Kamala Harris, they asked her if Israel upholds human rights. She says yes. Yes. Israel upholds human rights. Great. They're fantastic. They should be a model for the world. Tulsi Gabbard only admits that there's some challenges with Israel and Palestine. She didn't stand up for the United Nations resolution that the Obama administration had abstained from. And then she also, I think, attended Netanyahu's speech when he was, taking over the country of America. The president didn't want him here, but he was like, "Fuck you, president." Republicans invited him, so it was it was very embarrassing, actually, for the president. It was also right before either Netanyahu's elections or American elections. And then, shockingly, Michael Bennet, my senator from Colorado, says that Israel is the one indispensable nation on the planet, not the United States, but Israel. And I hate this argument. Okay, so Donald Trump, he loves Israel so much. Is his loyalty to the American people, or is it to Israel? So you heard it from Michael Bennet. His loyalty is to Israel. And so people, that defend Israel, that, act like they're not, that it's okay for them to murder. That's another thing that's saving Israel. If you let Israel continue to murder, the whole world is seeing that. They're only, pushing themselves closer and closer to extinction themselves. They're committing suicide by their continual oppression and murder of the Palestinian people and children. Hundreds of kids. They killed thousands of Palestinians, hundreds of kids, indiscriminately. Why? Because somebody over here shot a rocket, and they shot a rocket because they did, some kidnapping, or they did some shooting, or they did some, torturing kids in prison. So it's always, when it comes to a fight, who starts it, I think, is the most important thing, because they both look like assholes. But if you just look at the body count, the body count says it's a turkey shoot. So, okay, that guy shot a rocket. Now Israel's just bombing all these kids all over the place. That's acceptable. That's okay. And they call it cutting the grass. It's just a routine thing to them at this point. So Marianne Williamson isn't much better. She says Israel is the second most important behind the United States. So that's better. At least she recognizes the United States as being number one, but Michael Bennet does not. So if Michael Bennet and Donald Trump and Joe Biden, if they're more loyal to another nation than ours, then shouldn't they leave our nation and go to that nation? They love that nation more, so they want to protect that. That's the one indispensable nation in the world for Michael Bennet is Israel. What's wrong with Bolivia? What did Bolivia ever do to Michael Bennet? What about Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Finland, Nigeria, South Africa, Australia, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Venezuela, Cuba, Russia, China, Japan? What about, Mongolia? What about Kazakhstan? What about, Jesus Christ, Switzerland and, Liechtenstein and Nicaragua and, Chile? What about all the other countries in the world? They're not vital. They're not indispensable. Just Israel's indispensable. So, you know, all those countries, I think, are just as important, if not more important, than Israel. But for Marianne Williamson, Israel's number 2, America's number 1, but for Michael Bennett, Israel's number 1, and I'm not even for sure if he thinks America's number 2. So that's, you know, a little bit about Palestine. Bernie Sanders is awesome on Palestine because he's probably the most liberal on it. Mike Gravel is more liberal than Bernie Sanders because Mike Gravel says two-state solution hasn't worked. We've been doing it for decades. It hasn't worked, so we can't do that. So let's go to the one-state solution. That's what Israel's pushing for, and really that would be better anyways. That would be better if they just, you know, said one country, one nation, they all got the right to vote, and it was a secular nation, so there was freedom of religion. They could practice their own religions, but the state wasn't a theocracy. So the state itself would be like America and declare that there's no establishment of religion. There's freedom to do your religion, but there's no establishment of religion, which means that the government has to be neutral when it comes to matters of religion. And I like that better. That's been working for, you know, quite some time. You got Buddhists, Muslims, you got every religion all over the place. You got atheists, you got, you know, a nice multicultural, pluralistic society. A lot of Christians, but it's not a theocratic Christian, you know, Christianity. So Christianity didn't die because the government didn't establish, you know, a religion. So therefore, Judaism isn't going to die, and nor is Islam going to die if they just have a secular state. They would also be setting a good example for the Middle East. You want to say how great of a democracy they are? Well, they're sitting there trying to intimidate the Arabs from even voting. So that's, you know, that's the Southern terrorism. They had the Mississippi plan where they used terrorism to scare black people and black people sympathizers from voting, and it worked. Apparently, when you use terrorism to keep the people you don't want voting to not vote, they don't go. And that's a terrible lesson, which means we need to, you know, stand up to that type of shit, that violent, fucking, intimidating bullshit. So that's Israel. That's their grand democracy. That's their great, you know, you keep on, Kirsten Gillibrand brags about how they're the great democracy in the Middle East. Their democracy is shitty. They don't have instant runoff voting, I bet. If they have instant runoff voting, I'll take it all back. But they don't have instant runoff voting, neither do we. And so, comparatively speaking, is the democracy that we installed in Iraq and Palestine any worse or better than the one that we installed in Israel? Palestinian people voted, and they voted for Hamas. So now Hamas isn't a terrorist organization, they're a government organization. And so that's, you know, when it comes to Israel killing, you know, 551 kids, how is that not terrorism? Attacking civilian population for political ends? That's terrorism as fuck. That's war, that's terrorism, that's murder, it's bloodshed, it's a massacre, and it's disgusting, and it needs to stop. So keep on boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning in Israel until this, you know, this repression, this horrible, shitty treatment of Palestine, this apartheid state, the segregation of Israel stops once and for all.